Lesson 21 is on the distributive property and order of operations. The distributive property says that if I have a number outside parentheses like this, then the 2 gets distributed to each thing inside the parentheses. So I have 2 times x plus whatever's in between stays the same, 2 times y. And I could go from this backwards as well. And then order of operations, we've talked about before. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division, addition and subtraction. So number 1 says Bob drove from his home near Los Angeles to his destination in Sacramento in 7 hours. The next time he made his trip, he flew. He drove half an hour to the airport. He spent 1.5 hours at the airport. Had a 1-hour flight. And arrived at his destination 1 hour after landing. Considering Bob's total travel time, how much time did it save Bob to fly rather than drive? So we add up all of these parts of his trip. So a half hour and 1.5 hours is 2 hours. And then 1 more hour is 3, and 1 more hour is 4. So 4 hours. And when he drove, it took him 7 hours. So we're going to compare those. 7 minus 4 is 3 hours it saved him. George chopped 8 times in the first 30 seconds. Then he chopped 5 times in the next 20 seconds. Finally, he chopped 2 times in the last 10 seconds. How many times did he chop? So we have 8 plus 5 is 13, plus 2 is 15. So how many times did he chop? 15 times. Then it says, how long did it take him? And then we're going to add the seconds. So 30 seconds plus 20 seconds is 60 seconds, or 50 seconds. And then plus 10 seconds is 60 seconds. Or 1 minute, either way. And then the last question asks, when was he chopping most rapidly? So we need to figure out the chops per second. So we do that by doing 8 divided by 30. And on this one, since it's not the main problem, you can use a calculator. So 8 divided by 30 gives us 0.26 repeating. 5 divided by 20 is 1/4, so that should be 0.25. And then 2 divided by 10 is 0.2. So if we compare 0.2666 repeating, 0.25, and 0.2, 0.266 repeating is the biggest number, which means that's the most chops per second. So he was chopping most rapidly during the first 30 seconds. John read 66 books in 1 year. At this rate, how many would he read in 4 months? So 66 books in 1 year, we need to have years be in months. So 66 books per 12 months, and then times 4 months that he read, over 1. Months will cancel. So 66 times 4 well, 60 times 4 would be 240, and 6 times 4 would be 24. So 264. And then divide that by 12. 12 goes into 26 twice. 2 times 12 is 24. 26 minus 24 is 2. Bring the 4 down. 12 goes into 24 twice. 2 times 12 is 24. We know we're done because we have 0 down here and no more numbers. So that equals 22 books in 4 months. Another way that we could have done that is recognize that 4 months is 1/3 of a year. 4 divided by 12 is 1/3. And then 66 divided by 3 is 22. How can these numbers be rearranged to make the addition easier? Well, when I see a 7 and a 3, I would ideally like to have them be next to each other so that I can add to something that ends in a 0. So the first thing I would do is get the 13 closer to the 7. And that's going to be just rearranging the order inside the parentheses. Like that. Oops. I should probably rearrange it if it's going to be different. And that's by the associative property, or excuse me, commutative property, which says that we can change the order. And then we're going to change where the parentheses are. And we're going to do 7 plus 13 first, and then add on 18. And that is by the associative property. So it says, what two properties did you use? The commutative property and the associative property. And then what is the sum? Well, 7 plus 13 is 20, plus 18 is 38. Use the associative and commutative properties of multiplication to find the product of these numbers mentally. Write the order in which you multiplied the numbers. So, one thing that would be easy to do is to do 5 and 12, because I know that 5 and 12 are going to make something that ends in a 0. And then I would also like to do 130 and 10, or excuse me, 10 and 13. So I'm going to rearrange these, and I'm going to say 12 times 5 times 10 times 13. Then I'm going to group them, and I'm going to do 12 times 5 first. Twelve times 5 is 60. And then 10 times 13 is 130. And then 60 times 30, or excuse me, 60 times 130, well, 60 times 100 is 600. And then 60 times 30, or 6,000, 60 times 30 is 18 with 2 zeros. So that makes 7,800. So if we double check that, we have 12 times 13 times 5 times 10 is 7,800. and then write the order in which you multiplied the numbers. We already have that. Lender reserved 2 hotel rooms for $75 each room, plus a tax of $7.50 each. Illustrate the distributive property by writing 2 ways to compute the total. And then what is the total? So she reserved 2 rooms, and each room was $75 plus the $7.50 tax each. And by the distributive property, that would also be equal to 2 times 75 plus 2 times 750. So 2 times 75 would be 150. 2 times 750 would be 15. So $165. Estimate the area of this figure. Estimate means that we're going to round. So we're going to call this one 6 centimeters and this one 4 centimeters because 0.3 is less than half and 1/4 is less than half, so they stay at the number they were at. And if I'm talking about area, area is length times width. So 6 times 4 is 24, and then you take the units squared, so centimeters squared. Expand means use the distributive property. So we take the 2 and we distribute it throughout the parentheses. So we have 2 times x plus 2 times 7. 2 times x we just write as 2x, and 2 times 7 is 14. Factor means pretend like you started off with something like this and you want to turn it into something like this. So we have to look and see if we can find common factors that we can pull out front. So if I factor 9, it could be 3 times 3, and then x. And then if I factor 12, it could be 3 times 4. 3 times 3 would give me 9, and 3 times 4 would give me 12. And now I can see that both of these have a factor of 3, just like in problem B, both of them had a factor of 2. So that factor of 3 can be pulled out front of parentheses, and then what's left is 3x plus 4. And then I can double check with the distributive property. If I take this, I would have 3 times 3x plus 3 times 4. 3 times 3 is 9x. 3 times 4 is 12. And that's what we originally had. So this is the correct answer. Classify this triangle by sides and by angles and state the measure of each angle. So the first thing that they ask us to do is classify it by sides, and the options for that are equilateral, isosceles, and scalene. Equilateral means all the sides are the same. Isosceles means 2 of the sides are the same, and scalene means none of the sides are the same. These symbols here tell us that those 2 sides are the same, and since there isn't one on side AB, we assume that it's not the same length. So this triangle has 2 sides that are the same, so it's an isosceles triangle. Then it says to classify it by angles, and this right here tells us that it's a right triangle because it has a right angle. And then state the measure of each angle. So angle C is 90 degrees. We already know that. And then angles B and A are going to be the same because their sides are the same. When sides match, the angles match. So the total angle measure for a triangle is 180 degrees. We take off angle C, which is 90, and that leaves us 90 degrees between angle B and angle A. And if they have to be the same, I can take 90 degrees and divide it by 2, which gives me 45 degrees. So then angle A is 45 degrees and angle B is 45 degrees. And then angle C is 90 degrees. So if we go through and we add up 45 plus 45 plus 90, we get 180 degrees, which is what we need to get. The numbers of students playing soccer after school Monday through Friday were 20, 22, 19, 25, and 24. What was the mean number of students playing soccer that week? Well, to find mean number, we add up all the numbers. So 20 and 22 is 42, and 19 would be 61, and then 25 and 24 is 49. So there's 110, and there are 5 numbers, so 110 divided by 5. 5 goes into 11 twice. 2 times 5 is 10. 11 minus 10 is 1. Bring down the 0. 5 goes into 10 twice. 2 times 5 is 10. 10 minus 10 is 0. So the mean number is 22. 22 students. Simplify just means find the answer, and in problem number 11, it's testing order of operations knowledge. And remember that we have please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So I don't see any parentheses or exponents in number 1, but I do see multiplication, and multiplication comes before the addition. So that tells me to do 3 times 4 first, which would give me 12. And then, since there's no more multiplication or division, I move on to addition and subtraction. So I move from right to left. So 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 12 is 15, plus 5 is 20. Number 12, when you have things written in fraction form with operations between them, it's like you have parentheses around the top and then around the bottom separately. So we do those things before we do anything. So we do 2 plus 5 on the top, which is 7. And then we do 1 plus 20 on the bottom, which is 21. So that's why it says lesson 21, because there were parentheses in there, order of operations. And then it says lesson 10, because now we need to simplify that fraction. And both 7 and 21 have a factor of 7 in them. When I divide 7 by 7, I get 1, and when I divide 21 by 7, I get 3. So the final answer is 1/3. In number 13, we need to find a common denominator because we're subtracting fractions. And 3, I know, is a factor of 21. So to change 2/3 into something over 21, I take 3 and I multiply that by 7. So whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. 2 times 7 is 14. So my new problem is 20 over 21 minus 14 over 21. And 20 minus 14 is 6. And then the denominator stays the same. So 6 over 21. Both 6 and 21 have a factor of 3 that I can pull out. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 21 divided by 3 is 7. So my final answer is 2/7. In number 14, I'm going to add the whole numbers first. So 1 plus 1 is 2. Then I'm going to just deal with my fractions. And 3/5 I can turn into something over 10. To go from 5 to 10, I multiply by 2. So then I multiply 3 by 2 and get 6. So then the fractions being added are 6/10 and 1/10. 6/10 plus 1/10. 6 plus 1 is 7, and the tenths stay the same. So my final answer is 2 7/10. And then 3,660 divided by 12. 12 can't go into 3, but it can go into 36 3 times. 3 times 12 is 36. Bring down the 6. 12 can't go into 6, so I put a 0 up there. But it can go into 60 5 times. 5 times 12 is 60. 60 minus 60 is 0. So this is 305. Square root of 169 asks the question, what number times itself gives you 169? And that's 13 times 13 would give me that. So the square root of 169 is 13. The cubed root of 27 asks the question, what number times itself 3 times gives you 27? And since I know that 27 is a multiple of 3, I would just start with that, and I would check and say, okay, 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. This is 3 times itself 3 times, so the cubed root of 27 must be 3. And then 18 is 3 to the 4th. Well, we already know that 3 to the 3rd is 27, because it was itself times 3, multiplied by itself 3 times, so I just need to know what 27 times 3 is. Seven times 3 is 21. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. So 3 to the 4th must be 81. Another way that you could do it is 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 is what 3 to the 4th is. 3 times 3 is 9, and 3 times 3 is 9, and 9 times 9 is 81. Number 19 says plot the following points, connect the points to make a rectangle, and find the area and perimeter of the rectangle. So -5, 7 means backwards to the left 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then up 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Three, 7 means to the right 3 and up 7. 3, -2 means to the right 3, down 2. And then -5, -2 means to the left 5 and down 2. So if we connect those, we end up with a rectangle. And the sides are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So to find the perimeter, that means add up all the sides. 8 plus 9 plus 8 plus 9. 8 plus 9 is 17. 17 and 17 is 34. And on the graph, we don't know what the units are, so we just call them units. And then area comes from multiplying. 8 times 9 is 72. And then we have units squared, since it's area. Compare 20 minus 33 to the absolute value of 20 minus 33. Well, 20 minus 33 is negative 13. And then 20 minus 33 is negative 13. But the absolute value of negative 13 is positive 13. So that's bigger. Find two values for r which makes this statement true. The absolute value of that is 2. So this is asking what two numbers are 2 away from 0, while r could either be negative 2 or 2. Those are both 2 away from 0. Write in exponential form means anytime you see multiple of the same one, you will write an exponent. So I have 2 b's being multiplied, so that's b squared. I have 2 r's being multiplied, so that's r squared. And then I have 4 y's being multiplied, so that's y to the 4th. Find the perimeter and area of this triangle. Well, one thing that you need to know to be able to do this one is something called the Pythagorean theorem. And it might sound familiar. The Pythagorean theorem says a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And it works for right triangles where a and b are the two shorter sides of a triangle and c is the hypotenuse of the triangle. So if I want to figure out what this side of the triangle is so that I can find the perimeter, I need to use the two sides. This is a and b. So using the Pythagorean theorem, it says 6 squared plus 8 squared is going to be question mark squared. Well, 6 squared is 36. 8 squared is 64. And that's still question mark squared. 36 and 64 is 100. So if 100 is the question mark squared, then to undo the squared, I can take the square root. So the square root of 100 is 10. And then square root of question mark squared is just plain question mark. So this side over here must be 10 centimeters. So now I can find the perimeter. Just add up all the sides. 6 plus 10 is 16, plus 8 is 24. And then the area of a triangle is 1/2 the base, which is 8 in this case, times the height, which is perpendicular to the base, which is 6 in this case. Half of 8 is 4. 4 times 6 is 24 centimeters squared, since it's area. For problems 24 through 27, solve by inspection, which means figure out what number could replace the variable or the letter. So 27 plus what number would give you 35? Well, 27 plus 8 would give you 35. And then we would check 27 plus 8. Does that equal 35? Yep. And then 32 divided by what number would give you 2? Well, I think if you divide 32 by 16, it gives you 2. Let's double check. Whoops. 32 divided by 16. 16 goes into 32 twice. 2 times 32, 16 is 32. So that works. 8 times a number plus 2 gives you 90. So this number here plus 2 has to give you 90. So this has to be 88. So now 88 is equal to 8n. So 8 times a number gives me 88. And that number is 11. So we double check. 8 times 11 is 88, plus 2 is 90. That works. So 2 times the number minus 3 gives me 5. So this number here, minus 3, has to give me 5. So that has to equal 8. So 2 times b has to equal 8. Well, 2 times 4 gives me 8. So let's double check. 2 times 4 is 8, minus 3 is 5. That works out. Evaluate, find b squared minus 4ac when a is 2, b is 3, and c is 1. So b squared would be 3 squared minus 4 times a is 2 times c is 1. So according to order of operations, the squared comes first. So I have 9. And then I can multiply. 4 times 2 is 8, times 1 is 8. And then 9 minus 8 is 1. How many square yards of carpet are needed to cover the floor of a classroom that is 30 feet long and 30 feet wide? Well, the tricky part here is that it says square yards, and they gave the dimensions to you in feet. So the first thing we're going to do is convert the feet into yards, and you need to know that there are 3 feet in 1 yard. So if I have 30 feet, then the 3 feet goes on the bottom to cancel out with the feet on top, and the 1 yard goes on top. And this tells me that I do 30 divided by 3. So there are 10 feet in 10 yards in 30 feet. So since both sides of the classroom are the same, it's really 10 yards by 10 yards. 10 times 10 is 100 yards squared of carpet. Name 4 sets of numbers of which 0 is a member. And that's just talking about things like counting, natural, integers, and all that sort of stuff. So counting numbers do not include 0 because they start at 1, but whole numbers include 0. They go from 0 up. Integers include positive, negative, and 0. Rational means that 0 is a decimal that ends. And then real numbers includes all of those.